since starting my coaching business, I've had $0 months and 50K months, and months where I questioned whether I wanted to even keep going. But now, sitting on the other side of building a multiple six-figure coaching brand without a website, complex funnels, ads, or cold outreach, I want to share with you 20 lessons that I wish I knew way earlier. Now, not the obvious stuff like pick a niche and be consistent. These are truths I had to live my way into, the ones that really suck and hurt at first, but have changed everything in the long run. And I'm going to pack them all into this video. So whether you're just getting started or scaling towards your next level, if you've ever felt stuck, confused, or like it shouldn't be this freaking hard, then this is for you. So let's dive in and let's start with the inner game stuff. What if I told you your income ceiling has nothing to do with the strategy you use and everything to do with safety? Now, let me explain. So for years, I hit a ceiling with my income. No matter how hard I worked or how good my strategy was, I just couldn't break through it. Now, that was until I read the book, The Big Leap. And I realized my body didn't feel safe with the version of success I was asking for. More clients, more visibility, more abundance. It all felt like a threat, not expansion. And whenever I had a great month, I'd find a sneaky way to self-sabotage. So the way I broke through was feeling everything that came with the higher levels of success, which, believe it or not, was relaxation. Because till that point, rest felt like risk to me. So I had to consciously regulate as I would do things like chill on my hammock, because everything inside of me was telling me that wasn't safe. But when I did, things started flowing. And since then, I've doubled my income ceiling. So here's the truth. You'll only ever earn as much as what feels safe to your nervous system. Learn to regulate as you rise, and your income will rise with you. Have you ever had that pang of excitement with an idea which you quickly jumped on as if like you had to get it done like now? Of course I have too. And I used to think urgency meant alignment, but it doesn't. So I've come from a world of startups and corporate where I'm wired to move fast. Launches, funnels, new offers. I would rush in thinking it was momentum, thinking it was inspiration. But what I started to notice was that every rushed decision either flopped or just left me burnt out and exhausted. Now, what I've realized was urgency wasn't intuition. It was my ego. See, creations from the heart, inspired creations, never feel rushed. Instead, there's more of a deep, calm knowing, a sustainable pace. So now I have a rule. If it feels like a rush, it's the surest sign to just slow down. Now, slowing down doesn't mean stalling. It means making decisions from your truth, not from adrenaline. If you ever feel anxious in your business, here's a mantra that changed how I handle that fear in my business. See, anytime revenue dripped, or say I'd come back from a holiday, I'd feel it, that tightness in my chest, the panic, the pressure. That wasn't until a mentor said to me in his Kiwi accent that changed everything. He said, "Joel," I don't know what that is, "turn your nervous into service." So now, whenever I feel low momentum, instead of spiraling, I create, I give, I serve. Instead of focusing on the output revenue, I focus on the input, like how many conversations I'm having, how much valuable content I'm creating, and how many unattached offers I'm making. The harder I tried to manifest my goals, the further away they got. I've read an insane number of books on manifestations. I've watched hours and hours of YouTube videos. I've done all the visualizations. But I've come to realize the more I wanted, the more I had to wait, because that wanting often turned into grasping. And that grasping was blocking the very thing I was trying to call in. Now, there's a line from the Tao Te Ching that changed everything for me. It says, "When you realize there's nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you." Love the paradox of that. And it hit me. Wanting and having are not two separate things. They're the same. And the moment I started letting go of the pressure and attachment, the moment I stopped trying to manifest from lack and instead lived from alignment, that's when my goals came to me effortlessly. So now the way I try to live is I set the intention, I take aligned action, and then I let go. because desire without need is power. I'm sure you've heard that line, you have to pay attention. Now, it's a very convenient line that we coaches, consultants, and creators use. And of course, there's some truth to it, but not every investment is an empowered one. See, I've probably spent 6 figures on coaches, programs, and masterminds, and not all of them came from my truth. A lot of them came from fear, from desperation, from this is going to fix me. And every time I invested from that place, it felt like stress. But when I invested from a deeper knowing, my heart, that's when I stretched and expanded. Because stretch is, this scares me, but it excites me. Whereas stress feels like, I need this to fix me, to save me. Knowing the difference will save you tens of thousands over the long haul. So what do you do when your clients don't get results? For me, I remember it vividly. I had a client who was just really struggling and not really making any change. And I spiraled. I had thoughts like, did I fail them? Did I charge too much? Did I make any false promises? Am I a bad coach? Should I give up? The list is endless. That was until my coach asked me, Joel, was your intention pure? Did you show up fully? Did you do your best? And the answer was yes, like absolutely. I gave it my all. And what I've come to realize is that when your intention is pure, there's no need to take on the responsibility of them getting their results. And the way to create purity of intention is do the best you can, make your offer as good as it can, make it as good price as it can, and then you can let go of the responsibility of getting them results. What if everything you've been told about solving problems is wrong? You've probably heard the advice, brainstorm, strategize, think it through. But after training as an embodiment coach, I realized that's exactly what was keeping me stuck. Now, when I feel tense, tight, or stuck, I don't overthink. Instead, I body storm. What that means is I bring awareness to my body, and if the energy I'm in isn't useful, I shift it. I create an embodiment and energy that is. Sometimes that means dancing to create a more fluid and flexible mind. Sometimes that means sitting in stillness to ground and kind of slow the spin. Other times, if I need a bit of action, I'll fire, use a bit of fire breath, maybe some punching to focus and sharpen, because your body is your compass. What I say to myself now is lead with your body and the mind will follow. Body storming beats brainstorming every single time. Now, if you're anything like me, you left the corporate world because you feel repulsed by a calendar filled with meetings. Yet when you look at your calendar now, it's not far off. Because here's the truth, it runs deep. We have been conditioned to believe that busy equals productive. It all changed for me when I read the 11th verse of the Tao Te Ching, which says, a cup is useful because of its emptiness. And at a similar time, I heard Naval say, you have to work like a lion, not a cow. And that's when something clicked. I cleared space in my calendar and in my mind, because now my goal isn't to be full, it's to be empty. And now what happens is I am an empty vessel for intuition and inspiration to flow through me. And the result is my life and business are moving fast without much effort. So the business of coaching really is a game of pattern recognition. It's why observation and awareness are probably two of the most underrated skills in business, because growth doesn't come from doing more, it comes from doing more of what works and less of what doesn't. It comes from spotting patterns, and we do that by seeing more clearly, by developing this skill of observation and awareness. So every time you notice an area you're stuck, it's just a pattern playing out. And on the flip side, every time you succeed, again, it's just a pattern that can be decoded, repeated, and improved. So once you start spotting patterns, you can either shift it or leverage it. That's why this is all a game of awareness. The personal development industry needs to stop selling this lie. So for years, I thought something in me needed fixing, because every course, every influencer, every bit of content I consumed subtly told me so. That was until I realized there's nothing ever wrong with me or you. We're all fucked up. We're all broken. We all do things even though we shouldn't, even though we know it's going to cause harm or suffering to ourselves. And that's what makes us human. That's what makes us whole and complete. So you don't need to be perfect to lead. You just need to be honest, both with yourself and with your audience. All growth starts with telling the truth. So let's turn our mind now to the outer game and the last 10. And as a side note, if this is shifting something inside of you, go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps this channel out and it helps me realize and know that this is useful and gives me a little bit of Yeah, that was weird, but we'll roll with it. Now, before you build a website, hear this, because when I started coaching, that was the first advice I got. Go and build a website, probably from a marketing book written in the 70s. Now, that's not to say they don't work, they absolutely do. But what I realized in my first years as a coach, every time I changed or tweaked my niche or my offer, my messaging, I had to rebuild the whole freaking thing. That made me feel good. It made me feel like I was making progress, but it didn't actually move my business forward, because I realized the truth of that kind of work was that the website wasn't a strategy, it was fear in fancy dress. It made me feel good, but it kept me from the things that actually move my business forward, like content, connection, coaching. So now I don't even have a website. Instead, what I have is an authority flywheel, which you can learn more about up here. And my business has never been so simple or strong. The whole "you're just one funnel away" tagline nearly bankrupted me. So in my first year as a coach, I was hungry, impatient, and trusted anything and anyone but myself. So when I heard this "you're just one funnel away," I of course jumped at it. And I spent tens of thousands chasing that perfect funnel. But what it left me instead was debts, exhaustion, and right back at square one. I wasn't prepared to give up. So I went back to basics: content, coaching, and connection. And that's when things really started to flow for me. I quickly got to my first 10K month, because coaching isn't built on funnels, it's built on trust, connection, and relationships. So stop chasing the silver bullet, build the real thing. And if you're interested, by the way, go and check out this video where I share how I built my whole business without a funnel, without a website, using what I call the authority flywheel. So if you're anything like me, you probably got into coaching because you love coaching, not marketing and sales. But for most coaches I see, they are forever on that client chasing hamster wheel. And here's the shift that saved me from that exhausting cycle. So I remember voice noting a friend, sharing how burnt out I felt and really literally ready to give up. And he reminded me that I've been here before and I'll probably be here again. And he was right. But at the same time, something had to change. What I realized was that getting clients wasn't the issue, it was keeping them. So I flipped my core focus from client creation to client retention. Now, instead of asking, how can I get more clients? I asked myself, how can I keep my existing clients for longer? And that's when my business really started to motor. Recurring revenue, clients that stayed with me for years and did marketing for me, filling retreats without even needing to market them, because retention beats quick sales every single time. It's easier to keep trust than constantly have to rebuild it. So the early days of my coaching business were filled with doubt and second guessing myself. My mind was filled with questions like, who am I helping? What's my niche? What's my offer? Who am I? These questions literally had me tossing and turning in bed at night. So I did what most of us do. I over-researched. I downloaded all the PDFs, listened to all the podcasts, and got stuck in that paralysis. That was until I went back to what worked for me in my startup days. Testing, 2-week sprints, build, test, learn. And in doing that, clarity came. So what I would say to you is, don't be a researcher, be a scientist. Test, adjust, double down, and repeat. So my best coaching always happens when I'm being coached. And I've learned something really simple, but very powerful. If I stop getting coaching, my coaching gets worse. Not because I don't know what to say or what to ask, but because I'm not in it. But when I'm being coached, I'm in integrity, I'm being stretched, I'm growing, I'm walking the path, and I'm also learning from the best. I'm observing how they coach me. So now I just never take a break from coaching, especially when things are good. In fact, that's when to really double down, because in coaching, you are the product. And for me, I'm always a work in progress. So most people don't have a strategy problem, they have a systems problem. As James Clear says, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And there are 4 systems I've come to rely on. Firstly, my most important, my nervous system. Secondly, my productivity system, my marketing and sales system, and my delivery system. See, systems do the heavy lifting. They are what I lean on when times get tough or when I'm confused. Because in business, your floor matters more than your ceiling. What if the reason your business feels like a constant feast to famine cycle is because you're tracking the wrong thing? See, most coaches focus on revenue, but revenue is a lagging metric. It reflects what you were doing the last 30, 60 days, not what you're in control of right now. So here's what happens when you focus solely on revenue. When revenue's high, you feel great and you relax and you stop showing up, doing the things that got you here. Then 2 months later, things crash. Now you're suddenly scrambling with that needy, desperate energy, chasing clients, spiraling to self-doubt. Feast, famine, feast, famine. I used to live in that cycle too, until I realized the thing to track isn't revenue, it's inputs. The number of conversations you're in, the number of offers you're making, the amount of proposals you made in a day and a week, because they are the only things you can control. And when you consistently track the right inputs, the outputs take care of themselves. So I don't follow up with leads anymore. Not because I'm lazy, because it was draining me emotionally, energetically, creatively, spiritually. And yes, I have heard it too. The fortune is in the follow-up. But for me, my fortune is in the quality of my energy. So I've just simply stopped chasing and following up. Instead, though, I let my content and my presence and my systems do the following up for me. And I trust that when someone's ready, they'll reach out. See, it's not passive, it's actually peaceful, it's powerful. Because now the energy I used to spend on following up and chasing people, it goes into serving clients and building retention, creating better content and living a fuller life. And here's what's wild, because people don't buy when they're pressured, they buy when they're ready. And that's my job. Be there when they're ready, not chase. So if your content feels off and isn't landing, this is probably why. So for a long time, I struggled with my content. I was consistent, I followed all the frameworks and strategies, but nothing landed. That's when I listened to a podcast by Alex Hormozy on content, who said something that really changed everything for me. He said, "You feel like an imposter because you are." And I was like, wow, it was true. I wasn't sharing what I was living, I was sharing what I was learning. And from that point onwards, my strategy with content went from learn it and give it to learn it, live it, and then give it. So now when I create content, I ask myself, is this my truth? Is it useful? Is it coming from love? And if it's a yes, I share it, because the most effective marketing strategy and content strategy there is becoming the proof. Clients don't buy what you say, they buy who you are. So you don't need to be consistent, you need to engage the cycle. See, consistency is the most overused word in business, but it negates the fact that much like nature, we operate in natural rhythms. Business has seasons and rhythms, and so do you. So for me, what works is aligning and creating a macro and micro rhythm. On a macro level, I work in 8-week cycles, 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And on a micro level, I work intensely for 4 hours and then I rest, because what I've realized, there's a time to be ahead and there's a time to be behind. There's a time for effort and there's a time to relax. Now, I may move slower in the short run, but over the long haul, it's sustainable and it's lasting. So be a sprinter, not a marathon runner. So most of these lessons, I didn't read them in books, I lived them. Now, a lot came through failures, some came through mentorship, but all through showing up like time and time again, even when it was hard, even when I wanted to give up. So if one of these truths hits home, pause. Don't rush to action it. Let it land, let it sink in, let it change something in you. Because change doesn't always come from more action, it comes from a deeper level of awareness. And as a side note, if you're building a coaching business, not one that just looks good on paper, but one that actually works and feels good on the inside, then take this with you. You're not broken, you're becoming. And you don't need to fix yourself or build someone else's idea of business. You just need to keep showing up in alignment, imperfect, and real. So if this landed, go ahead and comment more, because I've got another 20 truths that I didn't get to and I'd love to share them with you. And also, if you're building a coaching business for the long haul, hit subscribe, because that's what I'm here to help you do. See you in the next one.